Bonjour.
Welcome back to the So French podcast, the show about the twists and turns, intrigues and insights to all things French. And welcome to this, the first episode of the 4th season of this podcast.
And we hope you had a nice summer. And this year, again, we will bring you the best, most interesting and fascinating of French news stories every 2 weeks, brought to you from our studio in the heart of Paris. My name is Stefan de Vries.
And my name is Sarah Bertilsson.
And this week, France is back from the holidays, but getting up from the pool and back to school will come with some novelties for the country's students.
And we will tell you about the hip-hop brawl that took two of France's most famous rappers to court this week.
But first, it was a difficult homecoming for Macron as well. He went on holidays in the south of France in his official residency. But when he came home, it wasn't all sunshine.
He wasn't. He had a pretty tough summer already. If we just remember what he was involved in a scandal, or well, one of his closest men was involved in a scandal. Alexandre Benalla, who was caught on camera dressed up as a police officer and actually hitting protesters during a May protests. And this whole scandal broke just before the summer.
Yeah. And only a couple of days after France became the world champion of football, because, of course, Macron hoped that it would give a boost to France and that all the French people would be very happy. But actually, the joy only lasted for 3 days. And then this scandal broke out. The Alexandre Benalla, his now former bodyguard and also, well, a very close
I don't even know what he's supposed to be. Yeah, I don't even know what he's actually supposed to be called, but a very close man, 26 years old only, but with a strong relationship to Emmanuel Macron. But so this was the, state of the country just before the holidays. Then Emmanuel Macron went away. The story didn't really go away, though. It sort of kept going in the media, and questions were asked to what was going to happen to Benalla, and how the government should react and etc.
And there was even a parliamentary inquiry, and
yes.
the commission.
And we saw the interior minister having to answer questions.
Yeah, and he avoided every question.
Yeah.
It was actually made Macron's case worse. But also the one of the members of the commission, they decided to quit because the president of the commission was a member of La République En Marche, Macron's party, and he thought that she was far too, she wasn't hard enough with the people she interrogated. So basically the whole, it more or less exploded. So Macron was elected to become this new some kind of, reformer who was going to change French politics, more transparency. And yet this is exactly what also happened to a lot of
many saying that this proves that this is exactly the same thing as all the previous governments or previous presidencies. But so that was the background. Then he went away, as you said, 2 weeks of well-deserved holidays, I assume.
In Brégançon.
And then he came back.
Yeah, more bad news. To what? Where shall we start? The economy, maybe, to start with. It's not going well with France. Unemployment was up again in the second quarter of this year. Just a little bit, but, there is no indication that there is a trend of unemployment going down. And actually, France is the only country in Europe where unemployment doesn't go down. So that's bad news. And then also the economic outlook. It looks much more complicated than expected, with lower growth than first predicted.
The first decision was the government had to make some kind of tough budget decisions and, cut down on some of the ministries. That was tough. But then it got even worse.
It got worse because then Nicolas Hulot, a very well-known politician.
Bright shining star of the government, wasn't he?
A former TV presenter and a very active in environmental politics. He joined Macron's government last year when Macron became president as a sort of sign for Macron that he was taking climate change very seriously, that he was to include non-politicians in his government. And actually Nicolas Hulot was the most popular politician in France as well. Yeah. So everybody was happy.
Not being a politician,
exactly. He never wears a tie, etc. So he has a very low profile, actually.
And high credibility, we must say. He's a very, very, as you said, popular, and people really believe in Nicolas Hulot. And almost all previous governments or presidencies have tried to get Nicolas Hulot to become a minister.
Yeah.
And this was the first time he actually jumped.
Yeah, because he really believed in Emmanuel Macron. And Macron not only made him his environment minister, but he also made him the number 2 of the government to show the importance that Macron, allegedly attaches to the climate change policy. So that was nice. A real environmental activist on the ministry. But then, what happened?
Yeah, he resigned.
He resigned.
He resigned out of the blue. Well, the thing is, it must be said that every interview that has been done with Nicolas Hulot ever since he became a minister has included the question, when are you going to resign?
Yeah.
Or are you going to stay in this government? And every time he has responded, I know that we move forward slowly. I believe in this project, etc. But suddenly, it was the day after he had a late evening meeting with the Francis Hunters organization, and new regulations were going to be proposed. Giving out more licenses and cheaper licenses, and then also change the hunting rules. What animals they were actually going to be allowed to.
So the next morning, he was a guest in the radio show on France Inter. Let's have a short listen to it.
Je ne veux plus me mentir. Et donc, je prends la décision de quitter le gouvernement. Aujourd'hui.
Vous êtes sérieux, là?
Oui, je suis sérieux.
So they are completely unexpected. He said, I'm leaving. And the presenters were...
She even said... Really?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they didn't expect it. They didn't know anything. He didn't even tell his wife that he was going to resign. No one. The people who were standing outside this radio studio, they said that his own communications, or his closest person who was with him at studio, he just lost his face completely. He didn't even know him. So a big surprise and a big, massive loss. For the government, or for Emmanuel Macron.
The reason Nicolas Hulot resigned was that he said, I no longer believe in this. And basically, he says, I'm constantly withheld by all kinds of lobbyists. They have open access to the ministers, to the president. This government is not going to do enough to change climate change. So it's a slap in the face. And even he didn't inform the Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe, nor the French President, Emmanuel Macron. So they also heard it on the radio. So it's a really real slap in the face. But
it is true. I mean, he has gone through quite a lot of. I mean, he didn't manage to go through with the denuclearization. He didn't succeed, or France didn't succeed when it came to the glyphosate debate. They actually ended up prolonging the authorizations for glyphosate. So there are several issues that have been ongoing over this last year, where he has been criticized for not living up to the expectations. But I mean, as he said, I'm on my own. I can't do this on my own. Yeah. It's impossible.
So how did Macron react?
Well, he said he respected Nicolas Hulot. I mean, he could. What can he do? What can he say?
He must have been very angry, I think.
I'm sure that he must be behind the scenes, not knowing, being taken off guard like that. And then also, it makes him look pretty bad. I mean, all this talk about make the planet great again, standing up against Trump, profiling himself as, the new European leader with the environmental issue high on top of the agenda. It all looks pretty superficial at this point.
Yeah, so that's a big setback. The new Minister of Environment is François de Rugy. He was the president of the Assemblée, so the lower house. So there's now a little fight or a campaign going on who's going to become the new president of the Assemblée. And there are a couple of candidates, but the most important candidate is Richard Ferrand.
We talked about him before in this podcast. Very close, someone very close to Emmanuel Macron as well, but who has himself been involved in scandals.
Yeah, in Brittany, because he's from Brittany and is still under investigation, right? So that was a big setback. And then, of course, there was another minister who had to go, Laura Flessel, the Minister of Sports.
The government's second most popular minister, actually. So the government, in a span of a couple of days, lost two of its most popular ministers.
Yeah, and she had to leave. First, they said for personal reasons, and then Le Canard Enchaîné, the satirical weekly, revealed that she had some problems with the
tax issues,
revenue.
apparently.
Yeah.
The Canard Enchaîné normally has very good inside information from the ministries and from the authorities. So
it was a hot summer, not only for all of us, but also for Emmanuel Macron. And he's getting back to office now with a lot of complicated files on his desk.
Now, it's the rentrée, the week where everything starts all over again. French people even seem to believe that it actually is the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I had an
and
interesting...
I think it exists everywhere. I think last year we spoke with...
We talked about this.
Yeah, the rentrée.
I had a conversation with a colleague, a French colleague the other day, who said that, well, the upcoming the European elections at the end of the year. And I said, no, it's not. There are no European elections in December. It's like, yeah, but they are in May. And in France, the year starts in September and ends somewhere in June. Yeah. And it continues even when you finish school. That's the way it functions.
And the first week, all media talk about la rentrée, and they have reports about all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's funny.
It's a very cultural French thing. Anyways, so it's not only the schools, as we said, that have the rentrée. It's also a moment when a lot of new laws come into effect.
Absolutely. And the most talked about this year was probably the fact that from this year on, pupils are no longer allowed to use their mobile phones in schools. It is one of a couple of reforms to improve French education. It's a system that's lagging behind other European countries. And phones were already forbidden on more than half of the country's 60,000 high schools. But always as part of internal rules, didn't cause any troubles. But now the central government in Paris said this should be forbidden all over the country. So that's what's happening now.
Is to say, though, that there's the education ministry is themselves saying, they just go from it used to be allowed, and then you were allowed to have an internal rule saying it is not allowed, and now it goes the other way around, saying it is the normal rule is not allowed, but you can have an internal rule saying that we allow mobile phones in these different. So it's just to change where the actual what the normal is, but then you are allowed to use the mobile phones in your teaching if you want to.
Yeah. But a lot of teachers and students however, they think the ban is useless. There are also a couple of practical issues. Most of the schools have no lockers where you can put the phones in during the class, and then pupils could even sue the school if the teacher takes their phone, because confiscating phones could be considered theft, so that's a legal complication. They can take it off for like a couple of hours, but not like indefinitely. So how it's going to work in practice? Now the teachers' unions asked the government how this should be applied in practice, but actually the French education minister didn't give any real answers. So it is, but it's a new rule.
Well, maybe it could just be seen as a good exercise in finding creative solutions, because it can't be that difficult to just make some kind of thing with pockets where the kids themselves put in their mobile phone when they get to school, just as you hang your jacket or your, your rucksack behind, when you enter the classroom. It can't be that difficult. No. This is once again this fantastic French, I must say, particularity of making something not that complicated, very, 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 very complicated.
Absolutely. And there's no scientific research actually that this actually improves education. There is, however, in Great Britain has been a research that some schools forbid use of mobile phones, and then the results go up, and especially the results of the pupils who were not that good before. So that's the only